Hello and Merry Christmas. This is Kim Newlove. I'm the host of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. It's Christmas Eve 2021. This is episode 128, and this is the last solo episode of 2021. I'm breaking my usual format to bring you a very short Christmas Eve episode today. If you're new to the show, welcome. I am a pharmacist by trade, but I made a career transition to voice actor and podcast host. Among other things, I narrate audiobooks for women pharmacist authors, and I provide medical narration to clients in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. I was inspired by my nonverbal teenaged son with autism to leverage my identity as a pharmacist and my speaking voice and launch my voiceover business, The Pharmacist Voice, in 2017. My son Craig helped me realize the power of having a voice and using it. Each week, I alternate solo podcast episodes and interview shows. The solo shows are about some aspect of being a pharmacist, a voice actor, a pharmacist podcaster, or my career transition from pharmacist to voice actor and podcast host. And my interview shows feature a variety of people who use their voices to advocate for something, educate in some way, or entertain so that my listeners are inspired to use their voices too. My website is thepharmacistvoice.com. As I record this, it's the Christmas season. This Christmas season feels different from last Christmas season, doesn't it? This year, my family and I have been attending gatherings in spite of the pandemic and hoping that our masks, the COVID-19 vaccine, and the booster shot will all do their jobs. For example, we are gathering with our families for Christmas parties this weekend. We've already attended some holiday-themed events, and we've been attending church in person again. Last year, my family and I did not gather with others because of the pandemic. We didn't even go to church on Christmas Eve. We watched the service live via Zoom. There was too much uncertainty about the virus last year, and we just didn't feel comfortable being with others. Now, I'm not here to debate the dangers of the COVID-19 virus. I'm just sharing how I felt last year and what I'm doing this year. This podcast episode is a snapshot in time. I'm sure I'll listen to it in December 2022, which is next year, so I can compare it to this year and 2020. I can't help wondering what it's going to be like in December 2022. Will COVID be a thing of the past? Will it be worse? Will we still be living with it at all? Only time will tell. I'm just taking it one day at a time. Speaking of podcast episodes being a snapshot in time, I have got to put a plug in for episode 76 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. It is last year's Christmas episode, Christmas 2020. I talk about my Christmas memories and traditions like reading books, watching movies, baking cookies, and so on, and it might help you understand who I am, where in the world, literally, I came from, and what I like to do around the holidays. There's a link to that episode in the show notes, or you can find episode 76 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast in your favorite podcast player. Although I'm excited to get into next year's material, I'm going to leave those podcast episodes for 2022 and keep this episode short. The first solo episode of the year will be January 7th, 2022, and I'll continue to alternate solo shows and interview shows every week. Before we get into 2022, there's one last interview show in 2021, and it's next week. If you're listening to this in the future, that's episode 129. Go back and listen to that. Megan Freeland, PharmD, will be my guest for the New Year's Eve show. Please tune in on December 31st, 2021 for our conversation. I'm looking forward to it. It is the third installment of my Women Pharmacist Writers Series. Dr. Megan Freeland founded a health content marketing company and also teaches pharmacists how to get paid to write health content. Dr. Megan Freeland and Dr. Brittany Hoffmann-Eubanks will be great mentors for me if or when I pursue writing. And hey, they could be your mentors too. I enjoy all my podcast guests, but I must admit that I'm really enjoying my Women Pharmacist Writers Series. I also realized through this experience that I really like publishing series of interviews. I'm even planning a PGX or pharmacogenomics series in 2022. If you want to check those out, subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast so you don't miss any of those upcoming episodes. Let's wrap this up. I know this has been a short one, but that's all I've got for today. Thank you for listening to episode 128 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Please visit thepharmacistvoice.com to read the show notes. You'll find a link to my Christmas 2020 episode, Dr. Megan Freeland's LinkedIn profile, and a link to my interview with Dr. Brittany Hoffmann-Eubanks in those show notes. If you liked this episode, please share it with a friend and subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player to get each new episode delivered to your smartphone every time a new episode comes out. Thank you again for listening.
Ho, ho, ho!